Hey everyone, welcome to the first episode of the SMT Fit Parent Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Steinberg, and I'm really excited to get started with you guys here today. I also have no idea what I am doing right now as I get started, so hopefully this all turns out okay. For example, I'm going to post the audio files on things like the Apple Podcast and Spotify and things like that, but I'm also filming this so I can post it on things like YouTube. And so that brings up the question, like, where should I be looking? Do I need to stare at the camera the whole time, or do I need to stare at my face the whole time on the computer? It's very uncomfortable doing that. So we'll see how this goes. I appreciate you tuning in. And, I also kind of, as a parent, I hope I can make this through this very first time because my daughter is currently napping. So we'll see if I can finish this before she wakes up, or else there's going to be multiple takes on this one. But my focus on this too is for this to not be a super long episode every single time. I don't know about you, but as a parent, like sometimes the only time I can listen to podcasts, or maybe if I'm going for a quick walk, or I'm in the car driving from one place to the other, and I really only have like 15 minutes. So my goal is to try to make these podcasts, short and sweet and to the point. So that way you can get it all in one trip and not something that lasts for long periods of time. And of course, there'll be some maybe that go longer when I do interviews and things like that. But just to give you an idea, that's my hopes here. Get straight to the point, and then that way you can move on with your day. So, yeah. So, for example, like this podcast here today, one of the things I really wanted to get into is just the 5 common areas I see that are really compromising your fat loss journey. And once again, I have a couple notes written down so I don't forget to cover some things here, but I'm kind of just winging this one because I feel like when you write this stuff down, it just sounds like you're reading off a script, and maybe that's what you're supposed to do in this, but that's not the approach I'm going to take here. So anyways, 5 areas. All right. Before we even go into these 5 areas though, let's just, understand a few things about how fat loss works. First of all, if we are not in a calorie deficit, we're not going to lose weight. All right, we have to make sure that we are burning more calories than we are consuming in order for our body to lose fat. And there are tons of ways that you can go about doing this. For example, you can reduce how many calories you are eating, and then by increasing your movement, the two of those combined are going to create a calorie deficit. If you're not going to increase your movement at all, you're just going to need more of a calorie deficit from what you are consuming. Or if you're not going to change anything that you're eating, then you really need to be burning more calories throughout the day. And, really, in my opinion, the one that works best is a combination of the two, making sure that we're increasing our movement as well as decreasing the calories that we are consuming. So to lose fat, you need to be in a calorie deficit, consuming less calories than you are burning. And then we need to increase our movement. For the movement piece, I would say we need to increase our steps first and then focus on increasing our strength training as well. But we will kind of get into that one as we dive a little bit deeper here. But so let's kind of break this down. So I said 5 areas here. The first area that I want to talk about is not consuming enough protein. You'd be surprised at how little protein you might eat throughout the day if it's not something that you're constantly thinking about. A lot of foods that we eat are really high in fat and carbs. And fat and carbs are great. There's nothing wrong with them. But the problem is they don't keep you full like protein is going to do. And protein also is never going to be stored really as fat in our body. So for example, like let's say that I have grilled chicken with lunch. That's going to be super high in protein, and it's going to keep me full until my next meal. What's also nice, as I said, is like this protein is never going to be stored in our body as fat. So let's say, for example, that I'm sitting all day and I'm not moving and I eat a bunch of carbs and fat. My body will use what it needs in order for me to, basically maintain life and get through the day. But then any of that carbs and fat that my body didn't end up needing, it's just going to store for later usage. Protein is really hard for our body to store, though, unless it is storing it as muscle mass. So basically, our body's going to use whatever protein it needs from the food that we are consuming, and then the rest it's just going to get rid of. So you can imagine there, like that's kind of one of the ways that protein is going to help us. Now, also another thing is, in order for us to lose weight, like I said, that calorie deficit is really important. When you eat a diet very high in protein, you're going to leave each meal feeling very full. And if I feel full, then I am way less likely, to snack throughout the day. I am way less likely to overeat on some of those processed foods that, we might normally eat at the end of the day or in between meals that really just kind of give us a quick burst of energy, and then they leave us feeling hungry again. So I would highly suggest trying to increase your protein intake, and really the end goal should try to be to eat your goal weight in grams of protein per day. So let's say that, and I would say that's at like a minimum. Realistically, you should be eating your normal weight. So like if I weigh 180 pounds right now, I should try to eat 180 grams of protein per day. And then as you get closer to your goal weight, maybe my goal weight was 160. Once you get down to the 160, okay, like then you can start eating 160 grams of protein per day. But by making sure that the majority of your diet is coming from protein, or not the majority, but a good percent of it, I'd say at least like 30%, that is really going to help you maintain a calorie deficit and not feel hungry. Because that's the hardest part about a calorie deficit, right? You are sitting there and you're super hungry. You're trying not to eat. You're trying not to think about food. And then you end up having a moment where you just give in and you just eat a ton. But if we're eating protein, that calorie deficit is going to feel way more manageable. Continuing with the calories, another area where I see people often slip up and not even realize it is when it comes to drinking calories. So that would be the second area compromising your fat loss, is the calories coming from what you drink. This can be any variety of items. For example, your morning coffee. What are you putting in your coffee? How many calories are you adding to it with the creamers and the sugars and everything? When you're going to Starbucks and you're buying one of those seasonal drinks, the pumpkin spice lattes or the crazy frappuccino, cappuccino, double pump, triple pump this, quadruple pump that. All those things just pack so many calories. And so now instead of that thing that you were having just to have some caffeine and enjoy, turns into a 500 calorie drink. Or for example, maybe you're someone who drinks a lot of pop throughout the week, or maybe call it soda. I call it pop. But, those cans of pop are just packed with sugar, and that sugar continues to add up throughout the week, which leads to a bunch of calories. Imagine, I think a can of pop is around 100 calories in it. If I have 2 of those a day and I have that, let's say 5 days a week, 200, right? There's 1,000 extra calories just coming from drinking those cans of pop. Another big part of drinking calories comes from alcohol consumption. And I'm not saying you can't drink alcohol, but if you're extreme in the amount that you are consuming, those calories add up. And once again, and that's a whole conversation for another day, but when we drink alcohol, all our body cares about is getting rid of the alcohol, because alcohol is viewed as a poison to our body. And so if I have a night where I have 5 drinks, that's around 500 calories, assuming I'm not mixing it with something that has calories in it as well, right? You could add mixers to the mix. If I'm doing that, I tend to not think about what I'm eating in that moment. And so then next thing you know, now I'm eating more food than I typically would. And so now not only did I get the 500 calories from what I was drinking, but an additional 1,000 calories from what I was eating, because my inhibitions have been lowered and I wasn't really thinking about it. Well, that's an extra 1,500 calories that I just put in that I probably didn't need. And then also all our body wants to do is get rid of the alcohol. So it's going to store everything that you just ate as fat, because alcohol is viewed as a poison. And so our body just wants to eliminate that. So you can see how those calories can start building up on top of each other. And again, I'm not saying that you can't enjoy the glass of wine or enjoy the beer at the end of the night or on Friday night with pizza, but just be aware of how many calories you're getting from all of the alcohol that you're consuming, as well as maybe other things that you are taking down with it. And there are some things that you can do to try to work on these things and that's how I kind of want to close out here, is after I present all 5 of these areas, is like, all right, well, what can we do now that we know these things? The third thing with calories that I want to bring up is weekend calories. So this would be the third area compromising your fat loss journey. Some of us do such a great job throughout the week, Monday through Friday. We eat perfectly. We don't have a single thing, no sweets, no anything, all just perfect food. And then the weekend comes, and after 5 days, we just go ham, right? We go to a party or something, they've got chips and dip. We go somewhere that has fried food, and we just devour that food, because we just went so long with depriving ourselves of the things that we liked. We were restricting what we were eating, that we couldn't do it anymore. And so now we overindulge on the weekends. And so the weekends really can set people off, because instead of us just being consistent throughout the week and enjoying things throughout the week, we save it all for that Saturday, and we end up having way more than we would have if we just allowed ourselves to enjoy those things throughout the week as well. Quick sip of coffee here to refresh. So those are the 3 areas in regards to calories that I think are really compromising your fat loss. Again, not eating enough protein, drinking calories, as well as weekend calories. The other area that is compromising your fat loss is the amount of daily movement that you have. So many of us don't move anywhere near as much as we think we do throughout the day. And there's this arbitrary number. People say you should get 10,000 steps per day, and it's a great goal to have. It's a lot of movement and would definitely give you a lot of benefits. But I would say your first goal should just be to increase the amount of movement from what you currently are at. If you're currently moving 3,000 steps per day, get yourself to 5,000 steps per day. And this goes back to the whole thing. In order to lose weight, we have to be in a calorie deficit. And we need to make sure then that we are increasing our movement, because the more we move, the more calories we are going to burn. So if we are eating less, if we are burning more, that is going to result in us burning more calories and is going to help us lose more weight. If we don't move at all throughout the day, we're going to need to consume that much less. So basically, movement allows you to eat more than you would if you just sat and did nothing. And I don't know about you, but I enjoy eating. And so I'm absolutely going to move as much as I can to offset, how much I'm eating so it doesn't overindulge. Now, let's say you are moving and you're like, Jeff, I am walking 10,000 steps per day and I feel like I'm watching my nutrition. Well, let's look at our nutrition a little bit more. And maybe you need to up your steps a little bit more to help, or maybe you need to start in your daily movement piece. Maybe we need to start incorporating some strength training to it. I would say steps is a priority, but if your steps are at a good place, then you need to start incorporating some resistance training to your routine, because resistance training builds muscle. And the more muscle that you have on your body, the more calories you are going to burn. It's going to increase your metabolism, and all of those things are going to help you in your weight loss journey, and also just going to help you get toned, right? We don't want to just lose weight. We want to lose weight and get toned, so that way we fit in our clothes better and our confidence levels are higher. The last thing that I really notice is compromising your fat loss journey is just a lack of consistency and sticking to the routine. Like I said, we'll be really good for like 3 days and then we'll have a really bad day. We'll be really good for 5 days and then we'll take a week off because we just deprived ourselves for a week. We'll be really good for like 2 days of perfect meals and then we'll have one bad meal and we'll just say, oh, it's over. I want you to think about, if I have 3 meals a day, that's 21 meals in a week. I'm pulling out my calculator here. If I eat well for 18 out of 21 of those meals, so we're saying I have 3 meals where they're maybe less than ideal when it comes to our nutrition, that means that I was successful 85% of my meals. If we can even be at 80% consistency week in and week out, you are going to experience change. You don't need to be 100% perfect here. Unless you're striving to be in a bikini contest or a bodybuilding show, there's no need for us to avoid all the things that we like. We don't need 100% consistency. In my eyes, 100% consistency is prison, right? You don't get to enjoy the things that you want to enjoy, and you should be able to enjoy those things. So I want you to focus on not thinking that every meal has to be the healthiest meal you've ever eaten. I just want you to think that the majority of your meals need to be healthy. Your week doesn't have to be perfect with your steps, but can you be perfect a majority of the week? Maybe we hit our step goal 5 days throughout the week, and maybe we eat well for our breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day. And then on Friday and Saturday night, that's when we have, maybe a meal where we're going out and we're eating something that might not be considered the healthiest thing, but we've been so good throughout the week where it's okay for us to enjoy in those moments. So just to kind of, review those 5 areas. Number 1, we are not eating enough protein. Number 2, we are drinking too many calories that we are unaware of. Number 3 is we are overindulging on weekends to make up for all the restricting that we do throughout the week. Number 4 is we need to increase our daily movement. And number 5 is we currently have a lack of consistency and sticking to this process long term and finding, a routine that works for us. Now, just to quickly throw some ideas out to you before we end here, in regards to not eating enough protein, I challenge you to try to eat 20 grams of protein at each meal to start. All right, make that your goal when you're tracking. For drinking your calories, really do an analysis throughout the week and be aware of what you're putting into your drinks and maybe make some substitutions. If you make mixed drinks when you're drinking alcohol, can you use something that has no calories in it? Can you switch from regular pop to diet, or can you just decrease the consumption of that? Can you make any changes to what you're mixing in your coffee, or can you just straight up go to black coffee or tea? Those are all things that are going to help you in there. For the weekend calories, let's combine that one with the lack of consistency. Can we just improve to a point where we don't feel like we're restricting ourselves throughout the week? And that way we can stick to these habits that we work on 7 days throughout the week. So we're no longer trying to be perfect all our weekdays and then we let go on weekends. Let's find something that's actually sustainable long-term for you. And then for that movement piece, take an analysis of what your movement is. Use your phone, use a Fitbit, use your Apple Watch, and see where your steps are at, and then challenge yourself to increase. If you're at 2,000, don't set a goal for 10,000. It's not going to happen. Set a goal for maybe 5,000, then maybe a goal for 7,000 or 8,000. Those are all step improvements that are going to help you in your fat loss journey. All right. Like I said, I'm trying to keep this short, so I am going to call it on there. All these things that we just kind of talked about here, these are things that I work on with my clients that I train online. This is the type of information that I'm sharing with them and the type of habits that I'm helping them develop. So, if you want to continue to have access to this type of information even, I would highly suggest that you join my free Facebook group. You can find that by going to smtfitparent.com, and then you can go ahead and join the group from there. And in here, you'll find things like recipe books, workout routines, all those types of information I'm sharing with my free community in there, because those people are my VIP. And if you're listening to this podcast, that means you're part of my VIP too. And I want you to get access to all of those materials. So please go in there and join. Also, if you found this information helpful, please subscribe to this podcast, leave a review, anything that can help this podcast not get hidden amongst all the other podcasts that are out there, and can hopefully, get in front of other parents' eyes and help them as well. Or maybe you can share it with someone who's having a fat loss journey. All right. I don't really know how else you're supposed to end these podcasts. So I'm fortunate that my daughter let me get through this one. She's starting to wiggle around. So I think that's my cue to end this. But again, thanks for joining in, and look forward to hopefully having you join me with the next episode.